Hello and welcome to Unplugged, an IoT podcast where we dive deep into the fascinating world of automation and IoT. I'm your host, Phil Saboa.
G'day, Phil, and hi, everyone. My name is Ed Fuentes. Well, Phil, we are very much people who like to talk to all about the OT. We're strong in the OT and know about OT, and we play around in IT and have that IT-OT conversation together, right? And we talk about how that convergence is a challenge. So we always like to bring guests who can help us navigate those challenges. And I'm so happy and so excited that today we actually got someone who's been involved in helping organizations scale beyond just pilot projects, but actually bring that shining light of that technology, and not just the technology, but the people side of digital transformation. So I'm very excited and very happy to welcome David Ariens to our show today. So welcome, David.
What an introduction. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, David, you're based in Belgium. You have another podcast, so you're kind of a cousin of ours, focused on IT, OT. We'd love to hear, David, you've spoken, to so many leaders out there in the ecosystem. We talked prior, it's actually quite a small industry as well. We're all facing the same, I guess, IT, OT convergence challenges. Maybe you can bring your perspective on what's still the biggest barrier with IT and OT.
That's a really, really, really good one. I think first of all, this IT OT challenge, it's a common one we all face in the industry, and the industry is a very, very, very broad, I would say, concept here. But we've been talking to from process companies to manufacturing companies to even infrastructure, which is many people don't really see that as infrastructure, but for us, we all treat that as kind of the same. And it's interesting to see that this IT/OT discussion, it is happening. It's almost an identical discussion. Only I would say the ifs and the buts are a bit different, and the tools are sometimes a bit different. But the core of the discussion is the same across all industries. And I think to put it like in really, really, really simple terms, it goes down to the simple fact that it is a COO versus CIO type of discussion. And yes, in one company it will be a COO, or it will be a VP operations, or a plant manager. There are differences, but I would say really, if you really go down to the basics, to the starting point, the silos are there. It's the one is reporting up to the COO, the other one is reporting up to the CIO or something similar, and on both sides, you just have other priorities. And it makes sense that the operation silo, it's all about safety, obviously, as number one priority. We all share in the industry, and reliability, but also just the operations comes first mindsets. It is typically at the operation silo where money is being made, where the company makes their living in whatever they're doing. It's a part of the business where we have extremely long life cycles. Lots of stories to tell about that as well, but like 5, 10, 15, 20 years, that's normal. And it's also one where customization is the norm. And customization is the norm. I don't mean like invent your own SCADA or something like that, or like invent your own protocols. But given some of the industry protocols we have, some of the software we have, every line is different, every install is different. You will hardly find, if you have a company with 20 production plants, even if you would standardize on a single SCADA DCS vendor, chances of you finding 20 similar installs are, I would say, close to zero, right? So it's all about custom. And on the other hand, you have the IT silo or the IT organization, where, unfortunately, the CIO is typically not the star of the company. They are a supporting function. They are a really, really important supporting function, but a supporting function nevertheless. and that creates this friction, which I guess is inherent to our industry, but it's not a problem we can't overcome, obviously.
And in that journey, David, have you seen it in the time you've been in the industry? Is it better today, or are the barriers that they were facing 10 years ago the same barriers today? Is it a technology barrier? Is it a people barrier? What do you see?
That's a really good one. We always say that people love to have a barrier technology, a technological one, because then you go like, oh, but in that case we need to buy some new technology and it's all fixed. It's about organizational setup. It's about collaboration. It's about trust. It's actually mostly about trust, because what the interesting thing is that. But maybe to come back to your question, like, did it really change in the last years? Yes, to some extent. I think there are two big drivers here. So a couple of years ago, we had what we call infrastructure convergence as a driver. So that means that because of the need of connecting networks, you saw that collaboration was required. So to share network components, firewall rules, cybersecurity, and especially cybersecurity legislation is typically a big driver in collaboration. So like it or not, but it's typically only when like a law is passed in a certain country or region saying that you have to do risk management, you have to have a single accountable, you have to do all the cybersecurity fun stuff. I can also tell stories about that. I've been in cybersecurity for many years of my career, but it's only when like there is this need to collaborate that you really see projects or collaboration projects kicking off. So that's what we saw. That's what we saw first. Now you get this what we now call data convergence era, or years, or whatever. It's a bit double-sided here, as in I think we are still in this storming phase. Lots of confusion. Lots of people thinking that they can do something, or we know it better, or I know it better, or you don't understand what I'm doing, etc., etc. So I do see quite some confusion still, but we are confident that now data convergence will be, now in the years to come, will really be the I would say the new driver behind collaboration. And then I'm not saying convergence, and I do say that really, really deliberately. So the one of the problems with like if you talk about IT/OT convergence, you have people who are pro or con. Like you have people going like typically technology vendors going like, yeah, we fully support IT/OT convergence with our technology, etc. And then you have lots of people who are like really, really against it. I think the biggest part of that population are people who have a pure OT or an OT security hat on, and they go like, yeah, no, never gonna happen. So I think the problem is that IT/OT convergence is a wrong term. Because the question is, do you mean with IT/OT convergence a technological convergence or an organizational convergence? If you mean a technological convergence, I say yes. Of course, we need to learn from what IT is doing, and IT needs to learn from what OT is doing, and we need to bring that together. And I also want to use pipelines and hits and containers, and I also want to use it on the OT side. And that's, I would say that has nothing to do with becoming less secure or something like that. It's not that because we adapt IT technologies that we would become less secure. That's just how you implement those technologies. But unfortunately, many people treat IT/OT convergence as if they hear it, they immediately go like, oh, so we need to build one organization which contains both IT as well as OT personnel. And then I go like, yeah, that's not gonna happen ever, because you will not have, I don't know, like your Windows mail specialists, like, I don't know, configuring a new mail server in the morning and then changing ladder logic in the evening or something like that. Anyway, it's like totally pointless, right? So I think it's important that this term IT/OT convergence, that we really, if we say that we really define with what are we meaning exactly when we're saying that. So yeah, I hope that's kind of an answer to your question.
Oh, the fact that convergence is put out there is a bit of a I guess, almost threat statement sometimes.
Yeah.
They both have to coexist. They both have functions
Yeah.
within the organization that they need to fulfill.
Mm-hmm.
One is not going to replace the other.
No.
And the merge between is a huge range of skill sets that not one person. And what usually happens in smaller to medium organizations these are limited teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
You usually have one or two members in their IT team member to do more, I would say, administrative type tasks, in terms of infrastructure and office type functionality. And then you have the OT infrastructure team who are just fighting fires, all the time.
Yeah, and there are obviously some exceptions here. We've seen companies who have unified their groups under single leadership, perfectly fine. Would even be interesting. But it is actually really interesting, and that's the cool thing of writing the IT/OT Insider, is that we were able to talk to all these people, and they share their experiences. But really important, within or under that common leadership, they still have a pure OT, a pure IT, and then also a joint IT/OT board. So that's still important. On the other side, there are some companies which are very low in OT footprints. So you have companies where you don't have OT specialists really on the shop floor. Like they I'm not want to minimize it, but they buy units, they buy machines from a vendor. These units are being installed as they are. They might contain more, less, or a really advanced logic inside it, but from the end user perspective, they've bought the units. And there we do see IT departments who, for example, train a bit in understanding MQTT, and they have one of their IT guys whose job it is to make a MQTT, to set up, for example, an MQTT broker, to get some data from those machines or something like that. But those are really, really edge cases.
That's not those you mentioned before about the longevity or the nature of some process lines being 10, 15, 20 years old. When you buy those lines, they come, almost brand new with the modern technology. You flick a switch, I want 10,000 widgets, and away it goes.
No, but yeah, and it is an interesting thing, because even in that edge case where you have the IT departments only, they still need to understand that reality as well, because they will find themselves in a situation where after some years they will still be talking to an asset which hasn't changed at all in those years. So that it is, but those are edge cases. One of the cool things is that as part of our research is a very big word, but in any case, one of the topics we are focusing on is organizational models, because we believe that obviously cooperation is a must-have. But you'll have different ways of working together. Like in very small companies or companies where you don't have IT/OT experts in house, you will most likely use what we call a contracted experience, which means you bring in the consultants, whether they come from a big or a small consulting firm. That's not the point here, but you bring in some consultants to help you. You have people who use shadow IT or shadow OT, sometimes because they have to. I've worked for multinationals where in the country itself there is zero IT footprint. And operations goes like, yeah, guys, we really have a problem we want to solve here. So then they go to the local hardware store and they buy a server, right? Can you blame them? No. But also, especially in the bigger companies, you see these project teams, call them Industry 4.0 project teams or innovation teams, or there are pros and cons to that as well. And basically, what we did is we we wanted to give people a language to talk about organizational setup. So one of the articles, but actually one of the oldest articles we published more than 2 years ago, are our cooperation models. And it's actually just a very, very simple language on how to talk within your teams on how are we going to organize ourselves across the silos, to do something better for a company, and how are we going to evolve? Where do we start, and how do we evolve into a cooperation that actually makes sense? And that's really interesting. It's not something we really invented ourselves, but we took that from the IT world. So it's highly influenced by concepts from DevOps and team topologies, which is like something known in the IT world, but less in the OT world, and we want to change that.
Yeah, I think bridging that gap between IT terminology, conversations into IT, bringing that down into that OT layer, we're starting to see that that style of infrastructure coming forward, containerization, edge connecting to cloud more often than not these days. And, you talk about those edge cases where, there's this drive to consume data out of those OEM-based machines. Usually that's a challenge in and amongst itself, because the OEMs particularly don't necessarily, they see that as part of the service, holding the data, potentially not making it available, maybe utilizing it to bring value to the customer, but the customer doesn't really have direct access to that data at the end of the day. And hence why you get edge cases where you're doing skunkworks type architectures and MQTT brokers here and there on the plant floor as well.
Yeah, and it's a pity. I guess it would be in the general interest of our industry to push our vendors in general to be more open. I think we really come from an era where almost everybody had closed systems, using their own proprietary SDKs, where you had to pay a very typically very high license fee in order for you are, I would say, allowed to get your own data out of these systems. This is not a question about open or closed source. That's totally besides the point. But it's a matter of open systems, and that's really, really important. If I buy a machine, I want to be able to access it using a protocol which is not some shady thing nobody understands. So and just be able to access it, and that's also a bit of mind shift from our vendors. The problem is that many OEMs, they are engineering first companies, so they are really focused on building a beautiful asset, which probably does exactly what it has to do for the job, but this data part is typically really difficult for them, because and here again I talk to many leaders in that type of companies, so these engineering first companies, and in many cases their leadership is not really a data aware leadership. They are mechanical engineers. Well, typically they have some mechanical type of background, and also suppose that you would be able to, I would say, explain them the pros of being more data driven. Then also the next problem is then they sell their unit to a customer, and then you know that as good as I do, but you come into the cybersecurity discussions, you come into data ownership discussions, etc., etc. Is the customer buying the equipment, or are they renting or leasing the equipment? It's often so difficult for these companies to come up with really a good data vision. And it's pity, but I do get it. And somehow I think from a customer perspective, we need to really push those vendors to provide open standards. And I've seen, for example, one of the companies we work with is a watchmaker. And I was talking to them, and they told us, so their IT OT or their IT for manufacturing type of lead, they told us that they started as maybe some more skunk works alike, where they just had the broker, and then they were publishing, or they were populating the broker themselves. Then they started an internal standardization process, and now they're actually pushing their vendors to either take their standards as a basis or invent something by themselves, but at least publish data from these machines in a standardized way. So it is possible, but we, as an industry, need to push that to our vendors. I think they won't do that by themselves.
No, as you said, it's going to be a catalyst, right? It's either legislation or it's customer driven. I think I totally agree with you that, customers are becoming more aware with Industry 4 type. They may know the buzzwords that they've, heard on social media, or they might be starting to, especially maybe in Europe, where we've been driving Industry 4 type approaches now for many years. They're starting to become more aware. They're seeing that competitors in their markets are starting to adopt these types of technologies. And so that is driving specification, as you mentioned. And so they're starting to ask those questions of the vendors.
Absolutely. Go slow, but it happens. Sorry. Yeah.
No. And what's happening as well, and, with Phil and I, one of the reasons I've been much in the OT space, and for many years it's close protocols, gapping the OT system. It just isn't the data you need. SCADA systems were, a big SCADA system was 10,000 or 15,000 tags. Data in OT was never a need or a demand. But as the fluency has grown, and now, like you mentioned, the organizations start to see the value of data, customers, end users, OEMs, whoever, they see the value of data to the point right now, right? There's obviously, we can go to AI and LLM, and we can go there as well. But one of the reasons I think Phil and I started the podcast as well is to help improve the fluency in our industry about, what to look for, to help them with when they talk to their potential contractors or OEMs. And I think, talking about podcast, I know you've got a podcast yourself too, David. So what was the main reason that inspired you to start that podcast? What got you going there?
Yeah, so there is the official reason and the non-official reason. Let me start with the official reason. I don't think I actually ever told this story. Anyways, you get the scoop. So I worked in the chemical industry until 3.5 years ago, more or less. So I did 12 years in chemicals, which was a really, really, really nice and cool time. Learned so much. But at certain points, I was a bit fed up with the politics. I know that at a certain point, I was going from one meeting to another meeting, filling in Excel sheets, and then got another Excel sheet, and then yet another presentation I had to give. And anyway, there was a point where I was going like, is this really what I want to do for the next 10 years? So then I became a consultant. I wanted to see the other sides. So I literally switched sides, which is actually rather cool. But so I started working with new customers, mostly food and bev, but that doesn't really matter. But for me, it was also a new sector, which is cool because you learn things like traceability, for example, which I had some notions from the chemicals, but it's less of a problem in chemicals than it is in food and bev, for example. And then at a certain point, and it happened more, but there was one specific meeting where there was a big workshop, and it was literally IT people and OT people sitting at both sides of the table. And I was there as well, not to lead the workshop, but I was actually there just to listen in. I was invited, and they were not hostile against each other. They were colleagues, but you could feel it. It took they during the entire workshop that there was not really a common understanding. Sometimes they said the same word, but both had a different like a different. The understanding was different on both sides of the table. I know that at a certain point somebody went like, should we just go to the whiteboard and start explaining what we mean? And then they came to the conclusion, oh, so we've been talking about this thing for the last 2 hours, but we actually meant something different. And then I thought, like, also me at that point, I was lacking a bit framework. So something which I would say I really put some thought in, and then I could, I can give it to somebody else. So like, here is something, here's a framework on data. Here's a framework on collaboration. Here is an explanation on the Purdue model to make it like super concrete, or what MCP now, but previously MPC. I'm by training an MPC engineer. So the very first time I saw MCP, I went like, I know this, but yeah. Anyways, so that's a bit where I felt that need to start writing stuff, like the things that were in my mind. I just wanted to write it down. That was the simple official reason why we started the ITOT Inside. Now, the unofficial reason is that I had a very good ex-colleague and very good friend where we shared an office at BASF, so my previous job, for many, many, many years. And when I left, he also left. So we were both working at different companies. And we were at a certain point going like, we have to find something where, there is a reason for us to meet each other and at a minimum have drink a glass of wine or share a beer or go to a restaurant or whatever. So actually we met during months at the time, like every so many weeks we met and we just talked about stuff, and we were looking like we want to find a way to work together. It doesn't really matter what, but something. And then at a certain point in time, the idea of the ITOT Insider was born. And perfect, because that gave us... We didn't really care what we were at that point. We were just like, this. Yes, we'll start this thing, and we just start working together. And it doesn't really matter what we do, but we found an official reason to see each other as much as possible. So yeah, that's how things can evolve, right?
I think we definitely feel that empathy. Myself and Ed, we kind of have a very similar story. We both worked at inductive automation together, and we just wanted to kind of continue to do that. So, we've taken every opportunity to kind of hang out and chat and talk about and put the world's to rights on many occasions and publicly on this podcast. So we can definitely feel that journey.
So big shout out to Willem, my co-founder. We are totally different people, like from a personality point of view. Like we live in two worlds. We're both engineers, so we also we have a lot of stuff in common. But like we have a different view on the world. We have different experiences. We have different training. I would say we also have different interests. And so for some reason, that combination of the two of us, like that's really, really, really gold. Because we were talking about it, Willem and I, we were in the US last week on a conference, and so we had a lot of time to think about things. And he said like for example, what I can do really, really well is just write down the first idea. Like here is I have an idea, top in a couple of slides or in a document or for an article or whatever. I'm really good at writing down an initial idea. And then Willem is really good at looking at that idea and then saying, David, this is crap. And that like literally happens every single time, where he goes like, yeah, no. but then the process starts. So then he starts like, maybe we should do it like this and then or like that. And then my initial response is always like, oh Jesus, Willem, can we just move on? But then after a while, the end result is always so much better. So that's like our typical day at the office.
That sounds very familiar. I guess as you've spent, many years together in the industry, I guess maybe you can tell us about, some of your experiences in the industry itself. Is there any particular kind of site where you've been in with a team and you've seen something they've done really well, or you've been walking the sites and you've seen something totally amazing, or a factory that you've seen? Like, what's one of those kind of key moments in your experience in the industry?
That's a very good question. I think it's definitely a combination of a lot of smaller encounters. Now, I must say that my time at BASF in Antwerp has been a brilliant time if you look back at it, because I think one of the things I think we were big enough to be able to do a lot of, I would say, really crazy data type of stuff. Is one of the Antwerp site is one of the biggest chemical production sites in the world. So that meant that when I left, so my IT OT team, so just the IT OT part alone, was already 40 people. And it's just, that's not the OT team. So there was an OT team of, I don't know, 40, 50 people, maybe 60, I don't know. And then we even had the like the 24-hour team to do the the troubleshooting and all the high voltage stuff, etc., which was again, I don't know, 20 or 30 people in size. So from a personnel, from a headcount perspective, you are with a group of well over 120 people whose job it is to digitally transform a site, a very, very, very big one, we must say. But I think what we had is we were big enough to have enough people, enough, I would say, experience in house, and there are so many nice projects we did. But I think it's especially the way we organized ourselves was really interesting, because we were able to, I would say, go from more an reactive ad hoc type of organization to a product-centric organization, which meant that we felt it was really important to have product owners for every product or service we were offering to the site. And a product can consist of multiple components, obviously. But a product is always from an end user perspective. So that's what I think what I've didn't see too much in the remaining of my career. Now I do understand that the size of the team was really, 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 really big, which gives you some more advantages. If I look back to my personal experiences, I think the ones where I always felt the best about were the times when I was literally in operations, embedded myself doing a project. So in the beginning of my career, I did data science projects, then like mobile operator type of things. So giving operators mobile devices to do stuff. And then a bit later, cybersecurity. So I was visiting sites all over the world to do assessments. If I look back to my early days when I was, for example, implementing a mobile operator project, was in a steam cracker. A steam cracker is a facility where you bring in oil. It's not crude oil. It's already refined, so it's lighter components, and then you're cracking it into ethylene, propylene, and like some lighter oil. Some lighter oil components, whatever you want to call it. But it's still like a gigantic install, they gave me the opportunity to implement a digital operator project there, which was one of my first big projects. One of the things I liked so much about it is that we from the start we made this into a operator first project. So I was going as much as I could to the operations facility itself, and we were really talking to operators. I was going outside with them. I was also participating in the inspection rounds to really understand like what was it that they are looking for. And the interesting thing is that that was, I would say, the outcome of that exercise was actually something totally different than what higher management decided was needed. Now, this is just one story, and there are 1,000 extra where that's always the same. But the problem is that I've seen too many projects where you get this mandate from, somebody in a higher management position, wherever they are. It doesn't really matter here, to do something like, oh, we need this dashboard, we need to track OEE. We want to do mobile operator stuff, but just with like a bogus reason. So while I was experiencing what the operators were experiencing, and I sitting with them in the control room and talking to them about what they actually do, for example, where they went like, if you have trust, you get told more, right? So I was holding the paper they were using, and then I said like, okay, guys, so how do you actually use these papers? And they trusted me, and they went like, oh yeah, David, if it's like really raining outside, then we've seen people, not me, but we've seen people who then just they sit in their chair and they use the numbers from yesterday, and they just like they write the same. And all these types of stories, and I don't blame them. I've never done night shifts myself, but I was sometimes in the nights on the site for incidents, and it's a different world during the night. And that brought then, I would say, that brought us to a point where we went like, okay, so we wanna get rid of the excesses. We want to get rid of the misuse, but we also want to make sure you get a solution which really helps you, like where you can really take steps. And then we started identifying like what are the things which help them, and that actually became then into a really, really good project. And the system is now in use for already 10, 11 years, and still everybody is happy with the solution, and actually the entire site adopted it without making any marketing or without doing any push. It was really the operators amongst themselves said like, this is a good solution. Now the funny thing is that the same solution was also, the technical solution was also a couple of years later rolled out, and that's already a wrong word, rolled out to other sites of BASF worldwide. And that adoption totally failed. And apparently it was a fault of the software. And I went like, we are using this now for so many years and everybody is happy, and the entire site adopted it. And that's I would say it's a story which, this is now my personal story in this case, for this particular case, but there are so many others at my previous employer and now in my consulting job where it's always the same, where you go like, it is typically never the fault of technology.
It's usually, that change management piece, right? Like when a solution is not introduced in the right manner to get people on board, right? Like it's usually I don't want to say corporate push, but that's generally what happens. Is either, you purchase a particular technology stack and that's what you've got to use. In your case, I always see much more success when I'm listening to an operator or an end user who's actually going to be, using the particular solution that we're developing and trying to tailor that to the most value that they can possibly get.
And it's a really, 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 really good thing you're saying here. That is, I would say, it is also the Achilles heel of what we do. because and then if we step into that IT OT zone, and again, I'm like fully with you. Like you need to have that buy-in from the users, but doing that too much creates only custom solutions which are hard to scale.
Yeah.
And there is this interesting thing if we enter the IT OT zone, let's put it that way, and talking about multi-site customers or bigger customers, you want to somehow decouple the platforms you are building in that IT OT zone, whether it's a data platform or an MES system or whatever. So you somehow want to decouple that from the customization you'll see at the lower ends of the automation pyramid, which you will always have. And there is this interesting balance between, yes, you want to have as much pull as possible, but you can never only have pull. You also have to push a little bit. And having this continuum of pushing a bit and getting some pull, and pushing a bit and getting some pull, that's like super, super important. And then also finding a way to standardize to a certain extent is also super important. That immediately brings us, for example, to the UNS topic. I don't want to go into the technical stuff here, but like UNS, for me, that's whether it's 80 or 90 or 95% organization, but it is like, sorry, but installing and broker an OPC server, we know how to do that. Like that's kind of proven technology. But like discussions we are in, because I am like advising or implementing these types of structures. It's always about the data management part, and data management is organization. And where do you start, and who owns the data, and who decides on what structures to use? Because IDA95 is also, it's an empty box. It's an empty box. It's a standard, as a standard needs to be. Like it's like you can build like literally everything with ISO95. So that means that you still have to translate that to your situation, but especially again for the multi-site customers, like who has the truth? Who aligns across several sites, or will you end up with different models anyways? That is in my opinion, the most important part of this exercise. And I do understand that it would be easier to buy a technical solution. Again, we've mentioned that in the beginning of the podcast again already, and now I'm mentioning it again. Yes, it would be easier to buy a technical solution, but in the end, it's far from a technical solution, and that's what makes the discussion interesting, but also not really different today as the discussion we had some years ago. I think the core of this discussion isn't really changed. I think only the technology layer, I would say, around it has evolved, and evolved in a very good direction, I should say.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting topic around standards, because we talk about that customization, and you mentioned before the Purdue model, ISO 95, UNS, and safety. There's safety standards and cybersecurity standards. So this increase, I won't say increase, it's been around for a while, because companies, they do want to improve, and they don't want to create a customized solution with the danger of it not being scalable, the danger of it not being used across the business. And you're right, it's constant tuggle, push, tuggle. So how do you manage that with your customers around what standards do they adopt? What do you take out of it? Because they need to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And Phil was right before. Start with a question, ask the operators, get what they want to do. And you don't want to go too customization. You need to push back with some sort of governancing structure into cybersecurity, into other areas, which is a juggle. David, we've got a lot of customers in that space.
Yeah.
Give them 3 words of advice here.
I think it needs more than 3 words.
Yeah.
But there is a need to have a form of centralized governance here. Like the easiest way to get shown the door in an operation setting is to mention data governance. like, hi, I'm from IT, and I'm tasked to do your data governance, and they go like, yeah, sure, bye. So that's not typically the best way to do this. I think the companies who are able to get, let's say, furthest in this approach, or are able to scale fastest, they have a combination of having, and now I'm talking about, again, multi-site customers, but you can apply the same also to a single site customer. There you have a central team. In my article, I've published one not so long ago. I call it central, COE, but I think an enablement team. Somebody made a comment like it should be an enablement team, and that's absolutely right. So it's not about we are the experts. No, there is a central team, and that central team is occupied by a couple of things. First of all, they are typically the ones who have the money to spend. Because it's typically easier to fund a central project than to fund individual projects. If you fund individual projects, you probably get divergence from a technology and an implementation point immediately, because different locations will make different decisions. Not just because they want to, but probably because they just are working with another local SI, for example. They just have in that country they have SI A, and in the other country they have SI B, and the one goes for technology stack A and the other for technology stack B. That it's like the most normal thing to do. So having this central team which takes the project ownership and who is responsible of defining some initial standards. Now, if you talk about your infrastructure, if you talk about your cybersecurity setup, your architecture in general, you just wanna write that down. You go like, this is the way we're going to implement our solution across the globe. And yes, we'll definitely cater for some local deviations if it's really, really needed, but that's the exception. You want to have your cybersecurity sets carved in stone. You immediately want to involve your cybersecurity responsible group, whatever, in the discussion as well, that you have a foundation where like from an infrastructure cybersecurity point of view, this is going to work. If you go to these customers, to these lines, to the plant managers or their deputies, you're not going to debate the infrastructure part. That's done. What you do want to do is you do want to form a team which consists of local key users, the ones who are pulling the most, the ones who feel the need the most to do something, and bring that together with a few people or one person from that central team to make sure that you find a first common use case, and you start building towards a first common data model for that use case. And that typically works. Whether or not you're gonna deviate between standards, between the standard between sites, whether or not you are going to build, if you talk about namespaces, multiple namespaces, or multiple data models in general, I think that highly, I would say, is highly dependent on the company itself, because it might be that the company has like 10 similar sites. It might also be that they have 10 totally different production units who are doing something totally different, and you go like, yeah, it's pointless in trying to bring that together. But I think doing this approach where you make sure that the basics are carved in stone, looking for the low-hanging fruit where the pull is the biggest, bringing in key users who I would say give you the buy-in, and then trying to do fast iterations and fast showing value in a quick way, that typically works.
Yeah, I totally agree in terms of, having that core team of champions within the business to, define your digital strategy, enable, all the team members to be able to either come together and have a common goal with that digital strategy. That's really crucial in those early stages, and defining the why, and really identifying those key first steps to building out, common infrastructure, value driven, maybe applications, or just trying to find the value early. Definitely, I would agree with that.
So I did that. But we did that multiple times, but I did one time for again still at BASF for a very 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 big. So that was really a multi-million-dollar project, data platform type of thing. And I remember one particular thing where I went like, now I know my team is doing it right. Is I was in the company restaurant and taking my lunch, and a VP of a business unit who hadn't got the new solution yet, they were still on the old solution, approached me and went like, David, what can we do to be faster on, I would say, more early in your rollout plan? And then I said, nothing, because I'm not changing my plan for you, but thank you very much, because now I know that apparently, without, I would say, behind my back, people are talking to each other and going like, hey, these guys are doing something really, really, really good, and you also want that. So that, and that's why this pull is so important. But also, again, in that project, yes, we worked on the pool. Yes, we had people going to the different production, to all shift teams in person. But the foundation of the overall architecture was not to be questioned. Like, that one was set, and nothing could be changed on the architecture. The only thing we've done is we involved them, for example, in their own reporting, in their own data structures, etc. So that's actually only a very, very, very small part of the total picture. But that really, really small part was also the most important one. And maybe to end this case study, we were doing the rollout during COVID. I know everybody loves COVID. I do as well. But so because we were in a critical infrastructure, we were allowed to go on site if needed. You can't run a chemical plant from home. But especially in the early days of COVID, we instructed our teams, our IT teams or IT OT teams to work from home as much as possible. And they were doing rollouts site per site. And so operators are obviously in the control room as they have to be. And then the team used a video connection to dial in. And that didn't work. We very, very quickly, I think just after one or two attempts, we just scrapped the idea totally. And we said, like, you are now allowed to physically go on site again, to sit in front of these people, wearing a mask, obviously, at that point. But, like, go there, talk to them face to face. And the result was day and night. Because you had that direct connection, you had their buy-in, you could feel their problems, even without them saying that they had a problem. Actually, another cool story here is another project and totally different product. And it was a product for turnaround management. So the product was used to manage work activities during turnarounds. During a turnaround, everything needs to go like quick. It's like chop. You don't have any time to lose. Every hour you lose is an hour production gone out of the windows. And at a certain point in time, I got a phone call. So we had our solution already proven several locations. We rolled out to a new facility and got a phone call from the plant manager, and he said, David, I'm gonna be really polite here, but that piece of shit software, you are holding back our turnaround, and we are going to throw it all out, and we're going back to paper because everybody hates it. And I went like, damn, what is happening here? So I sent an engineer over there. I said, like, you now gonna sit in the control room between the operators and technicians and whatever, and everybody with a problem, they come to you. And then in the evening, I called him And I said like, and did you solve it? And he saw it. And he said like, yeah, I didn't really see anybody. Somebody passed by and said like, what is that button again? I went like, it's that button. Yeah, okay. Good. Then I can continue. In the evening, after that phone call, I got a phone call back from the plant manager. And he went like, David, I don't know what you changed, but it's running smoothly, perfectly, and everybody is happy. And I went like, great. So my engineer, he said to me, but what do you have to do tomorrow? And I said like, you're going to do your job in the control room of that company, and you're going to sit there until either the turnaround is done or until they say like, yeah, you can now go, back to your office, because he could work from anywhere anyways. So whether he's sitting in his office or in a control room doesn't really make a difference. The fact that he was there, the fact that an operator could just pass by and say like, was it? Yeah, it was that. Yeah, absolutely perfect. That was enough. And it's so important. And that's also why this ticketing stuff and remote help desks, and it's...
Yeah, you don't get the moral support, the physical, presence.
Yeah.
I heard a podcast or someone talking about the other day is that these are the things that we won't automate out of our systems, right? Is that physical touch, that physical presence, the things that make us human. We can't replace that, right, with AI.
No.
And so, those critical skills are still going to be as valuable as they ever were. And they're just not going to get automated out.
No, or if we do that, every response will start with, but that is a great question you're asking me. So here are 7 totally irrelevant reasons, or 7 totally irrelevant answers to your question. Have you considered?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And the thing is that, usually operators are talking specifics. You need a really dialed in AI model to give you specifics back.
Oh, yeah. We need another half an hour to go in that discussion. But I think you will never ever replace the human touch in an operational context, whether it's a actual physical touch, maybe some you can automate. Obviously, the easy ones, you can automate them away, and we've been doing that for many, many years, and we will continue doing that for the years to come with advances in robotics, etc. So that's not really the big thing. But like having a understanding of what is happening, that's never, not in the first 50 years or so. that is not going away. Now, what you obviously will be able to do is you will be able to have some kind of virtual, I don't like Copilot, but like virtual operator, where you would be able, if they really understand if that AI model would really understand the physical context really well and has integrated data from all your different data sources, and that comes together, then I imagine that in the years to come, you will come to a point where you're actually able to ask a specific question about a specific scenario to your virtual coworker, and that the response is going to be better than and maybe even, I would say, maybe cheaper than the tooling we have right now, because people go like, oh, AI is something like very special. Now, I've been, well, not myself, but I've been involved in implementations of process simulators in many plants. A process simulator exactly understands the plant. Hey, those are also multi-million euro projects. But today, it is already perfectly possible to build a flight simulator for a manufacturing process type of plant. That's perfectly possible. So if we want this virtual operator to happen, then I guess one of the things is you need to have a understanding of that physical reality. You have to have integrated data from all different data sources. And then preferably you build that total solution in a cheaper, faster way than how we would build a simulator today. And if that's possible, well, I do see a very big advantage of having this as part of your SCADA system, for example. But this is really far away about, or compared to the AI tools or the AI bolt-ons we are seeing today. And don't get me wrong, very nice things are happening. but they are not fundamentally changing the way we operate our facilities.
No, you're right. And you're going to a topic here that we could probably go for another hour. David, it's obviously your way you translated information and shared your stories. It's incredible. And I know you're continually learning. And that's one of the reasons I think that's why you do the IT Insider and the podcast, because that's where you learn a lot. So we always ask our guests, what are you currently focused on learning yourself? What's the next 6 or 12 months for David going to be learning?
A really good point. So if you go to the blog, you'll see that in the last year, we've I would say our main focus was on data ops. So we really wanted to demystify everything which has to do with data ops, UNS, and I would say alike concepts. We haven't really found a solution on data governance yet. Solution. I mean, like good mental models on data governance. So I would actually love to do some more work on that. But we are now shifting really towards industrial AI. So we now already published 3 articles / podcasts really focused on industrial AI, and more to come in the 6 or so months, maybe even the year, in the next year. We have a few weeks, just over a month ago, we started our very first IT/OT Academy. So we have an online academy where I'd say we bring the concepts from our blog, but we really bring it in a structured learning approach, in structure-led learning to our audience. So we are now in the process of also learning from that, because we have 2 groups running in parallel, a European time zone group and a US time zone group. And we are learning a lot from the interactions we have and the input they give and the just what people tell, what is working and what is not working. So we are really taking this feedback into account. And then next year we want to start a new round of academies, and then hopefully even better than what we are doing right now. So that's I think our focus, to improve the way we teach, and what we know about industrial AI.
Thanks, David. As we wrap up the show today, it's been a real pleasure to have you. Have you got any final thoughts, or how can people reach out to you specifically?
You can definitely go to itotinsider.com or itot.academy, and you'll find all my information there. I'm also on very, very active on LinkedIn. I only share interesting contents. But go to itotinsider.com and you'll find all information over there.
Well, thanks very much, David. Look, we've learned a lot in this time with you. It's been very insightful. Your take and your way you've communicated to us has been very clear, and we look forward to another episode. I think we can go deeper in other areas with you as well. So I really appreciate the time you've given us. And to all our listeners, I highly encourage you to definitely reach out to David. He's on LinkedIn, as he mentioned, IT/OT Insider. It's been excellent. Really, really enjoyed this session with you. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Enjoyed the conversation. You guys are doing a great job. It's good to have you as podcast colleagues. Thanks again.
Awesome. And thanks to also our main sponsor today, Phoenix Contact with PLC Technology. We've been talking about data today, and data-driven efficiency starts with PLCnext. It powers edge to cloud data flow, connecting terabytes of machine data and feeding smart analytics to scalable microservices. So we can really tap into the community-built apps on their PLCnext community, lots of different applications. So we want to really thank Phoenix Contact for making the Unplugged and IoT podcast possible. All right. Thanks, David. And see you guys next week.
Thanks again.
Bye-bye.